Howdy, y'all. This is the Market Fire podcast. I am Danny. I am joined today by our junior co host, Big Man. I'm also known as Big D. By the way, Big Man, we are live today on November 15th, but in the lower thirds, we're the 9th.
Oh, I'll fix that. Hey, we're
All
doing it
right.
live. What are you gonna do, man?
We got a bunch of fun stories for you today. I'm just going to do a rundown like the old days. Subway is adding vending machines. Danny's prediction: Subway stops existing as a normal place, becomes a ghost kitchen franchise with vending machines all over the place. Makes a lot more sense. Probably the smartest thing they did since they hired and then fired Jared. Um, Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield, they're going to team up and create a edible product in the shape of an ear. So I am just praying to the Christ that the asteroid hits us as soon as possible.
I
Um,
find it wonderful and hilarious all at the same time.
uh-huh. Well, you were probably closer to a teenager or an adult when he bit that guy's ear off, but we'll,
Oh
we'll
no, I
jump
was a
into that.
full-grown adult, and we'll get into that story when we get into that story.
Another billionaire, Jeff Bezos, promises to give his wealth away. I'm sure we're going to find out sooner than later it's not a tax avoidance scheme, right?
Okay.
Then we're going to jump into a little more SBF news and FTX stuff. I don't have that in my notes. That's big man. And then, hey, the supply chain looks like it's healing just as we're going into an economic downturn that will surely end our country's history as a country where we turn into a bunch of other small countries. Balkanization, it's on its way. All it's going to take is a little help from the economy in the downturn.
Sure, sure. Danny, you love your conspiracy theories. But anyway,
Mm,
I'm sure we'll get into a couple of those today. So, Subway machines, right?
yeah,
So, I sent Danny this story, and this is the one you told me was already on the list for.
no, no, no.
Okay.
This was none of them were already on the list when you sent them.
So I sent Danny this story because I found it interesting. This apparently I'd never seen this before until this story, which literally was yesterday. I think came out yesterday, day before yesterday. Um, Everybody knows that franchises, your McDonald's, your fast food joints of the world, try different things in certain markets, right? Like
Right.
I don't remember, like KFC has a particular little town that everything they try starts
Yeah.
there, and McDonald's has the same thing. Like there's certain towns that they pick for certain reasons.
Yeah.
That
So
Go ahead.
no, no. I was going to say. So, like for instance, they have the McDonald's like premier locations. I don't know what they have
Mm-hmm.
they have a like word for it. Like Starbucks has the Starbucks Black Label
Right.
locations, and then McDonald's does like these like it's like San Francisco and Seattle and all the places where I'm not allowed to visit because you take one crap on the sidewalk outside and it and if you're sane and sober, they're like, "Why would you do that?"
Well, but it's all
And my
data driven, right? Like it's all
yeah,
data driven, being that okay, if it works here for some reason statistically, it
it
works
works.
everywhere else, right?
Yeah, so like you'll see something like that in Shark Tank. They'll be like, "Oh, we did a 100 store test with Costco. We sold out 3 times. They reordered 4 times, and then they
Right.
expanded us in the rest of Costco." Taco Bell did this recently. Taco Bell, in my home state of Minnesota, in Brooklyn Park or Brooklyn Center. Listen, either of those cities, if it starts with Brooklyn Center or it doesn't matter, don't go to them. Okay, so the only reason I've ever gone to Brooklyn, one of them, I forget which one it was because that's the only place they had a K&G Men's Mart where they sold suits in my size, but they were Steve Harvey suits, so they had too many buttons. So we couldn't.
Anyway, the point is they started this apparently a couple of years ago. They started it in California of all places, college campus, which I would think would be a great. What we're talking about here is Subway is currently dealing with the idea of pre-making sandwiches, putting them in a
Right,
refrigerated vending machine of sorts, along with other things, cold drinks, chips, whatever.
right,
Essentially, a lunch refrigerated vending machine, and then
right.
putting them in high traffic locations and selling them directly from there. Which, on the surface, I agree with Danny, is not a bad idea at all if you've got a streamlined, obviously streamlined menu, you keep it to very high profile kind of stuff, and you
Right.
keep it in airports, train stations, college campuses, right? That kind of stuff. I doubt you're going to see one of these ever outside of your local Walmart or CVS or places like that you may see a Red Box or that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm of the mindset that the U.S. is preparing for the Japanification of vending. Japan is a country where if you go, they have, and there's so many videos on YouTube where you can find this stuff out, where Westerners go to Japan and they explore the vending machine culture.
Sure.
If there's one thing I hate about society, it's that we've attached the word culture to literally anything, and like,
Well, I think it depicts a following, right? When
yeah,
I hear the word culture, I think, and there are people that follow. Look, we've all been to Reddit or TikTok or anything else and seen these insanely crazy. A robot gives you a scoop of ice cream and then the robot
right,
hands it to you or whatever. So I think there's definitely a following for these insane, crazy vending machines.
right,
Obviously, Americans like the stuff. Like, I can never order out of a vending machine because I like my sandwiches a certain way, right?
yeah.
Which is not normal. So that kind of stuff. Look, I think this is half, hey, here's an idea that, like you said, we're copying from other places. I think
Right.
the other half of it is Subway and companies like it. It wouldn't surprise me if there was a McDonald's version of this, a Quiznos version of this, a Jimmy John's.
Quiznos, dude, I haven't heard about Quiznos since Jersey Mike's came in and just ate everybody's Quiznos.
Well, but
Um,
my point though is it wouldn't surprise me if this is a way for them to look. The pandemic hurt a lot of
mm.
these sandwich places because of workers, because of the pandemic, because of all that stuff,
And
and
dude,
I think
some of us were concerned about buying meat that was cold. I mean,
sure.
I think until April of 2020, if I was going out to buy anything, it was exclusively Chick-fil-A because for whatever reason, I trust their Jesus chicken over there, right?
It's
Because
got
so
sugar
like,
in it, and sugar kills everything. But the point though is this gives them a way to, and look, they're rebounding. Right, they're back to adding stores instead of closing them. Their
yeah,
profits are up as far as the company is concerned. These type of vending machines have been growing in profit margins where they've placed them and stuff like that, obviously. But I think this is a way for, if another, and I'm not saying another pandemic, but something else happens where people aren't going out buying sandwiches for another year or so,
right.
this actually levels the playing field a lot, right? And
Yeah.
continues income.
So what I think is that with so Subway was a in my mind was a pioneer of fast casual. And the reason I say Subway was a pioneer of fast casual was I had never seen this business model where, one of my favorite comedy bits of all time is Sebastian Maniscalco
Hmm.
talking about walking into a Subway. And the woman in front of him doesn't know what she's doing. And he goes, step one, pick bread. You don't see that? I mean, but after that came
Hmm.
Chipotle. After that came it, Subway in a lot of ways cratered the business of sub shops of my
Well, and
youth,
burrito
Blimpie,
shops and yeah, all
you
that
know.
stuff.
But I'm just saying their model was innovative. And what happens with an innovative business? We saw this with like Microsoft is a great example. There was about 20 years there where their innovation was subpar. But but they're large enough. A company like Microsoft, Subway, they have enough locations, they have enough capital that they can survive a rebranding. They have to find out that they have to find their piece of innovation again. They get new leadership. So the reason I think this is smart, and there's a gal on, she's all over. She talks about how um, there's boomers, they're retiring, their kids don't want their businesses. Just like when you were coming up, nobody wanted their dad's ranch, right?
Right.
You guys wanted to move to the city and go be yuppies.
Sure.
And now people in my generation and younger is like, we need land, we need a ranch. I need to see somebody slaughter the animal in front of
Right.
me so I
Right.
know it's not fake meat coming from a lab. Um, and that transition, I think, she talks about how you can go buy business. Her name is Cody Sanchez, I believe. And she did a reel or TikTok or something. I saw it on Reels, or a YouTube short where she's in a airport and she sees a salad. I swear it was on Shark Tank. It's a salad vending machine, and it comes in a glass jar. And she just sat there going, the average salad, I think the average one was $15 or something
Sure.
obnoxious. Right? This is a avocado toast level event. Okay.
Right.
Um, and it's a whatever, and it's in a jar. And so she's doing the math, and she's like, I've been sitting here for an hour. And in that hour, they sold, I don't know, 50 salads. And she's doing the math, and you go, if you have this many flights per day, and it's all that, she's like, so this is how much money this thing is making. And it's just a stupid salad vending machine in an airport.
Hmm.
I'm starting to go in, the fear that um, that was struck in our hearts. Automation is going to kill all the jobs. It's not going to. But here's the point: somebody still has to make the sandwich and fill the vending machine, right?
Yeah, but in
So
those kind of locations, like an airport, like a college campus, people are very used to spending convenience store pricing, right? Where if I go over here to Subway, I want to spend the $5 or $10 for, you know what I mean, whatever. But if I'm in an airport, a 6-inch sub, somebody's going to pay $15 for it easy, and your
right,
profit margins go up insanely, right?
yeah. And here's what I believe: if Subway is smart about this, and they start taking a path that's all you have to do is start using the buzzwords organic, farm to table, and
Right.
the yuppies will start shelling out the money. Because the big scandal that Subway had recently was everyone found out their food isn't even some of their options like tuna and other things
Wasn't tuna, was
or
it?
wasn't really food. Like somebody pointed out to me that Taco Bell, like the 60% of everything that you buy is just soy, right?
Right. Yeah, it's all dried out and then rehydrated at the stores.
Yeah.
But look, again, should anybody be surprised that Subway and the prices that you get for Subway is
No.
not 100% meatball or tuna or what?
Yeah.
Like, is this really surprising for your average person? Like, is
It's
this
not.
really something that should be? This is not a conversation. Now, I will say that Subway, because of those scandals, because of that kind of stuff, every decent restaurant, fast food, goes through periods where they get a bad rap for something. Jack in the Box, for the
Domino's.
example, almost went
Right.
extinct in the 90s when it was bought by a big corporation, an Asian corporation, and then it went through a bunch of scandals about how certain meat, and they got accused of being used using horse meat instead of all beef and all this stuff, and it almost killed Jack in the Box. And then the original owner of Jack in the Box came back and bought it back, and now it's back to Jack in the Box for the, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
Subway is due for a revamp. And if they
Yeah. It really
revamp and
is.
they come out with this kind of stuff and they go, okay, here's a bunch of uppity, right?
Right.
Black Hawk smoked ham, blah blah blah, in these kind of things, and you can only find them in these kind of places. And then you
Right.
go, here's our Subway, like on what is it, Uber Black, or right, where you get a
Yeah.
fancier car.
Uber Eats. Yeah.
Yeah, here's our, but no, where you get a
Yeah. Yeah.
fancier
Yeah. Yeah.
car, right,
Yeah.
instead of the
Uber
normal
Black. Yeah.
somebody, right, or Uber Black. You get a Subway Black restaurant or a
Yeah.
thing where it's you know what I mean, a second
It's the
tier.
exclusive. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. A higher tier.
People will still come in and buy the meatball sub, but you're going to get those people that come in and buy the
Well,
premier meatball sub, right?
whatever it is. And so the other thing too is like I think this is a strategy where they can up the quality of their food product, and I
Mm-hmm.
think that that's what they have to do. I don't think they have a future without that. And all you really do when it comes to this is you make the sandwich dry, and you include packets of whatever,
Right,
and you just say, and that's how you avoid making it gross.
right.
And
Whatever's popular in that part of the country, whether it's mustard or mayonnaise or, you know what I mean?
yeah, right.
Whatever the popularity of it is. But that would be good for revamping. Now, the problem that Subway has, being obviously a huge franchise model, is they are now doing what a lot of franchises are doing. They're having to wrangle in their franchisees.
Yeah.
Franchisees have gotten out of hand. They were treating employees bad. They were treating
Right.
customers poorly. They were, you know what I mean? Like the food quality wasn't going down, not just going downhill because of the food, but because of the places it was being done and
Sure.
used and that kind
I
of stuff.
mean, in my one of my apartments in Austin, within the complex there was a Subway, right? And I walked in and it said franchisee and it said the name Sanjay something or other. And I was like, oh, this is not going to be good. And of course they're using day old stale bread because the guy working there was like, dude, they don't. He just tells me to use the bread from yesterday. He doesn't let me make any more.
Yeah, use it until it's gone instead of complying with the
With their
rules of
rules,
so
which
many
is
hours and
trash. But the other thing too is if you look at it this way, um, Subway is not a place that you walk in for breakfast necessarily, right?
right.
But in order to, so if I'm a franchisee, and most of these franchisees don't own one store, they own several. So you go to
Mhm.
a franchisee and you say, listen, close 30% of your stores. And what we're going to do is we're going to transfer some of that staff and we're going to put a ghost kitchen or something in one of them. And then they're just, so you're going to close 30% of your stores and replace it with 3 vending machines. And you're going to move some of that staff into your other stores. They're going to be wrapping sandwiches for the vending machines. And then you're going to stick one kid on delivery and fill. And that's
Mhm.
how, and I think this is a brilliant strategy for them in, because they have to now compete with these, what I would call better sandwich places. I mean, dude, you're not telling me we're going to Subway over at Jimmy John's? They put you
Yeah,
say Chick-fil-A puts sugar in their food. I'm sure that's true.
they do. They
I
put
don't
it in the
know.
batter.
That very well may be true. We don't know this. We can't prove this, but it's a thought. Pretty sure Jimmy John's put crack in that bread. Pretty sure. Just not a
Well,
ton, not a ton.
Subway's
Just a
bread is so much sugar in Subway's bread that in places in Europe they can't call
yeah.
it bread.
It's
Like
not bread. Yeah, it's cake.
that's it's
Yeah, yeah,
cake.
yeah.
So look, the here's the deal. I'm not a big huge cold sandwich person. Like if I wanted a sandwich, I would eat it at home or make one at home. Why would I pay $10 for a Jimmy John sandwich when it's just ham and you know what I mean? Whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
what you're saying is true.
I like hot sandwiches. I always have. So if I'm gonna eat a sandwich, I like it hot, which
Yeah,
is
I know, but every Texas Philadelphia in Austin is closed, right?
right, right.
I liked going to that place. It was good, but they all
Texadelphia
closed.
is good, you know what I mean? But look, here's the point though. I think there's some promise here if their idea is to wrangle in. I would like to see one of their franchisee contracts because like your big
Right,
ones like McDonald's and these other places are like, look, you're going to abide by our standards or you're going to get out. Right? Like
right,
we're going to like McDonald's for example, if you don't abide by their standards, their rules, they have it in their contracts. They can take your restaurant. Now they have to buy it back from you, but it's not going to be for market value. It's going to be for
no,
whatever they say it is, and they're just going to take it over now that it's been there for 10 years, right?
right.
Um,
And they're going to turn around to one of their other franchisees, who's a huge operator, and they're going to flip it to that other
right,
operator. That's good at compliance. They're going to flip it to that other operator, and they're going to make a couple of bucks on the spread. But guess what? You're leasing the land under your restaurant from McDonald's, so
exactly.
they can control that. Now, I don't know how Subway's usually in strip malls. Has been my experience in a standalone unit.
Yeah, but you can still, if you've got it in your contracts that you can leverage, hey, we're going to take this away from you because Subway is what you got, right? Like
Yeah,
you're relying on a, you're not going to lose your Subway license, right? Your franchise
yeah,
model and be Bob sandwiches tomorrow. That's not the way
no,
it's going to work. So
no,
they need to go, okay, we need to step back a little bit from sales of franchises, put
right.
somebody in charge of quality control with the franchises we have and put some leverage on them to go, all right, clean up your act or we're going to start
Right.
cracking down.
So what happens in a lot of these situations with bigger companies? Now, you and I don't know if you knew him, but I did. He was a Jimmy John's franchisee. He owned a bunch of them, or 3 or 4 of them, I think. And one thing he noticed was, I think that Jimmy John's guy his sold his portion of. He
Okay.
didn't own it anymore. And what he was saying was immediately the requirements. I don't recall all of this, so I might be incorrect. Don't quote me on it. basically that either they sold it or Jimmy John, the guy, was trying to make more money. So they just started cutting the quality of the food. And my thing is, your customers notice that, right? So so
100%.
so Subway lost its way because at one point in time there was a guy named Jared, and he listen.
That was a long time ago. Like, long time ago.
But hey, listen, Subway entered my consciousness because of Jared, right?
Right. Your generation, that
Listen,
when you were
he
a
turned out,
teenager, Jared
yeah,
was a thing,
he
right?
turned out to be a complete pervo and a criminal.
Yeah.
Aside from that fact, it would, they had this reputation that they had developed because of him, that they were somehow a healthier option.
Correct.
Now, if they can recapture that mental space in the mind of the consumer by creating salads, because that salad company that was on, that I was talking about before, that I think was on Shark Tank. Guess what? They don't have the capital power. They don't have the
No.
manpower. They don't
Mhm.
have anything to capture the market the way. So if Subway, instead of looking at this as we're just going to sell more crappy sandwiches, says we're going to make that pivot back to where now the larger share of the populace, my generation, millennials, are becoming, some of us are in our 40s now, right? So we're
Right.
becoming a significant economic factor. If you revert back to being the healthy place in our brain, selling salads and all this other stuff through vending machines, strategically placed throughout a city, I think you're onto something.
Right. Streamline your menu, right?
Yeah.
Go back to quality, streamline it so you're still seeing your profit margins on your
Right.
roast beef products, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. There's definitely a way forward. I think the vending machines are a good way forward in the way that, because look, if you build a network, especially if you go through the vending machine type of people out there, right? The people that own 150 vending machines and then take care of them, right, all around Central Texas or whatever. If you go through those people and get them on board with this, where they're buying the refrigerated vending machines, I think you could very easily go, okay, this is a Subway machine, this is a Jimmy John's machine, this is a, and share some of that weight and cost of it as
Right.
you broaden this out, right?
Right.
And then
The other
yeah,
the other thing too is the vending machine operating is not a um complicated.
no,
So like it's easy enough where the technology is either, I wouldn't use the term open source, but it's open enough that they can call up any vending machine manufacturer and they will make a custom Subway vending machine that will say, okay, dispense, because you can now just put an Android tablet in the thing. You can take the phone and say, the app connects to the vending machine. So it's going to, you just say, okay, I want, salt, pepper,
mhm,
or so it will kick out all the condiments you need.
yeah,
So there's plenty of options.
they're all plug
So
and play at this point, right? They all slide in with advertising changes and all this
yeah,
stuff. So they're all made where you can compartmentalize them for different sizes and shapes and
yeah,
whatever. Now, when you get into older vending machines, if you're buying used vending machines, obviously it's different. But in the newer ones that are created every day, they're all electronically ran. They're all have mods in them. I got into this a little bit when I was looking, and I bought several for my real estate company. I bought several margarita machines and stuff like that, where clients could use them and stuff like that. And what I found out in the whole line of vending stuff, it's all just modular. Right,
yeah.
you buy a vending machine and you can buy these attachments. You buy, you know what I mean, or whatever. So you form it to whatever your need is. And as far as the stuff, the graphics you see on the side, it's I can change it from a Subway machine to a Jimmy John's machine with a couple of screws or a couple of, you know what I mean, sliding things or
Yeah, it's
whatever.
it's it's a vinyl wrap like when people wrap your car. So it's not like,
Exactly.
so I'm just saying that this is the bright spot for Subway is, look at these people being innovative. Look at them doing
At the
something
very least,
innovative.
trying something,
Yeah.
right? At the very least, trying something. And I think sometimes that's exactly what you have to do.
And
And
hey,
even if it doesn't catch on, you did something.
Yeah. And hey, listen, this is just one for my team. You keep saying you want $15 an hour minimum wage. You're going to get the true minimum wage of $0 because we're going to replace you with a vending machine the way God intended it.
You are so bad. So bad. For
Yeah.
this not to be a political show, you are just so
Yeah.
bad. Anyway, next one. You've got on here a little late to the party. Who's late to the party?
Well, so Evander's Holyfields
Yes.
and uh, uh,
Mike Tyson.
how did I forget his name? The great Mike Tyson, the champ. You know, I don't even think I was a
1997.
teenager. Yeah, so I was pretty
1997.
young. So 1987, Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield,
No,
probably,
1997.
that's what I said,
1997.
1987.
97, not 87.
I'm saying 1997.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm 10 years old.
All right.
This is before I loved karate. I love karate, but this is before I got into combat sports. So obviously, and listen, I'm 10 years old. You think my father is buying a pay-per-view? You think my father knows what pay-per-view is? Do you think my father ever paid for TV before?
All right. So,
No.
look, let me set this picture for you. 1997, boxing was like big time.
Huge.
Like, and when I say big time, I'm talking here. I went to in 1997 for the Mike Tyson Holyfield fight. I went to not a block party, but a neighborhood party. Blocked off streets, houses that were beside each other, doors wide open, kegs of beer, alcohol. The one that I went to backed up to a golf course. I mean, there were TVs everywhere, out on the streets, in the backyards, in the houses, wherever you went, right? And everybody bought, you know what I mean, the pay-per-view, and you just basically partied through the night all the way up until the major event, right? And then you just kept drinking afterwards or whatever. I remember that this just massive party and watching this fight and how everybody reacted. If you don't know the big thing that came from this event, not only was it a big, huge title event, Holyfield Mike Tyson, which two completely different boxers. Holyfield, by the way, is a mover and a shaker. Muhammad Ali kind of, you know what I mean? Kind of moving around, where Mike Tyson was considered a bulldog back in the day. Like, I'm going to get inside and beat the living daylights out of you because I'm stronger than you.
And he did.
Right, and he did. That's exactly what he did.
He's a prolific boxer. He hits hard.
Absolutely. So, so it was billed as and was an amazing fight. The hard part is Mike Tyson, like he's now well known for, that was the jump the shark, as they say, moment of Mike Tyson going absolutely nuts. Like, before that, you heard rumblings. But, again, 90s. No video cameras on your phone, no Twitter, no Facebook, no social media to go, hey, this guy's a crazy person.
But this is after Mike Tyson went to jail. Isn't that correct?
No.
Oh.
No, this is what I'm saying.
Prison.
This was pre when you had people that their entire job was to keep things that happened in sports under wraps, right?
Yeah.
Like if you went out to, if you were a Major League Baseball star and you went out and trashed a bar, you had a whole team of people from Major League Baseball that paid the bills to the bar and paid to have it fixed and kept it out of the newspaper. And like, there were entire teams of people that their job was to keep things under wraps, right? Well, in this case, Mike Tyson on pay-per-view television for the entire world to see, I forget which round it was. I think it was 7 or 8, 9, somewhere in there.
I would like to correct you on a piece of history.
Had he already been to prison at that point?
Tyson was convicted in 92.
I'm sorry.
This is post, and the only reason I bring that up was because there's this famous clip of Joe Rogan. And I don't know anything about combat sports. The reason I like it is because, you know, two sweaty guys, small shorts. No, I'm kidding. I like the violence of it, right?
Sure.
I like to vicariously live through another guy. I've never been in a bar fight. It's one of the things on my bucket list, but I'm in my
Right.
mid 30s. It's kind of like
If
my
it hasn't
back
happened
isn't.
by now, it's probably a bad idea.
Yeah, because now we're all going to prison. Not like the old days. But no, you were bringing up one thing that listen, I missed my calling in life as a fixer. Like
Right. Right.
I wish that was a career path. I wish it was as clear a career path as like I'm gonna go be a doctor or an attorney. It's like I wanted to be a fixer, like the guy who's like comes out of the shadows, starts paying everybody off. Like you never saw that. This never happened.
Well, look, and what I'm getting at here is obviously boxing, right? Everybody knows
Yeah,
boxing. It's not MMA. It's
right.
not, you know what I mean? These full contacts. It's boxing, right? Well,
Yeah,
Mike Tyson decides he's getting frustrated because he's not able to just beat the living daylights out of Angelo
right.
because he's moving, he's shaking, he's not getting hit, right? Or at least
Yeah,
he's not hitting him square. And part of boxing is grappling, right?
yeah,
It's holding on to each other. Well, Mike Tyson decides in one of those grapples in 7-8 or whatever that
yeah,
in the middle of a grapple he's gonna reach up and bite his ear off. And I'm
yeah,
not saying like, okay, I bit your ear and it's bleeding.
yeah,
No, Mike Tyson bit the man's ear off. He took a
yeah.
chunk of the man's ear off of his head.
Hey, it's called boxing, not hugging, right? I mean, it's called combat sports, not not home design with Martha Stewart.
Well, and this is
So
also the fight that he said he was going to kill Vander Holyfield's children, right? Like I'll
good,
kill your mother, I'll kill your
right?
children, like,
Correct.
and then he goes into the ring and bites his ear off, and so obviously it's iconic. Like there are
Yeah,
posters, there are like you know what I mean of the bleeding afterwards, and Mike Tyson's got blood on him, and it's an icon in boxing, an iconic moment in boxing, which
absolutely.
we found a number of people the next morning asleep on the green outside in that golf course community that we were at. But I digress. The point, the point is iconic moment. So you have all these years later. Mike Tyson has now been to jail. That was not the first time or last time Mike
Yeah,
Tyson's been to jail, but the man's in I think his 60s at this point, right? Late
yeah,
50s,
he's
early
old.
60s, or whatever. His money troubles have come and gone and come and gone
Yeah,
right over the years, and like a lot of sports people in today's world have started partnering for money, right?
yeah.
For things like that. In
Why
this
wouldn't you?
case, right? If I absolutely everybody should. If you can, you should. If somebody
Yeah,
will pay you for your likeness, get paid.
I mean Tyson did um the Hangover films,
Oh yeah,
and he was not looking good in those films. He was looking washed up. But you look at Tyson now with a clean shave, he looks great. Like he looks svelte. He's looking back to fighting shape, even though he's old, too old to fight.
well, what was it? A year and a half ago, 2 years ago, he actually had a fight. Like he
Yeah,
fought
he
like
did
some
a,
kind
of
of. But again, you do whatever you can do for paid. And look, he's
course.
he was in trouble like 2 months ago because he punched a guy on an airline. Now, good in my opinion, it was the guy's fault. The guy was
Yeah,
irritating Mike Tyson. Like he was giving Mike Tyson crap. And guess what? A 60-something-year-old Mike Tyson can still beat the crap out of your average person. Okay?
yeah. If you start messing with the champ, if you start messing with Iron Mike Tyson, dude, I know a guy, a physician who knew Muhammad Ali towards the end of his life, and even as he had been unwell, even at that point, he could have knocked you the frick out because
Because it would only take one hit. It only
yeah,
takes once to connect.
yeah, and it's Mike Tyson. Okay, so you deserve. So if that guy, what he deserves is he deserves to be in the loss column. Like he
Yeah.
deserves. Like I've had one professional fight. It was not televised.
Well,
It
it
doesn't,
was recorded and then put all over the internet. I'll tell you
which is the
that.
equivalent of being televised in 2022. But so what I would say is it doesn't go on Tyson's record as a fight, but it does go on this
Right, it
guy's
goes on
column.
that guy's. No, absolutely. So
He's
anyway, so
0
Mike
1.
Tyson, this company comes up to Mike Tyson and says, "Hey, we make edibles, both Delta 9 and Delta 8, right? Which
Right.
one is hemp, one's marijuana, right? That make
Is
edibles.
that true?
Yeah, there's hemp, which is legal in all 50 states in the United States, and then
Right.
there's of course marijuana
Cannabis.
that is
Yeah.
cannabis. There's one molecule different, delta 8 and delta 9, how it's
Okay.
derived. right? And
Oh,
one of them is illegal and one of them's not. Anyway, the point is,
well, oops.
most companies make both in today's world,
Yeah.
because if you're making one, you can make the other, and you can
And why
sell
wouldn't
one to
you?
anybody, and the other you can sell in the states that are legal, right?
Right.
Anyway, I digress. The point is company comes to Mike Tyson, says, "Hey, we got an idea for an edible, right? That kind of thing." Originally, they call it Mike Bites. Mike Bites because it was Mike Tyson. So Mike Bites, it's shaped like an ear or a half bitten off ear. Mike Bites, we sell them. Well, then they go, well, how can we sell more of these? Well, let's get some other people involved. Well, let's get the guy that he bit his ear off and we'll promote it, right?
Yeah.
Because Holyfield's still a huge name in boxing. I mean, Mike Tyson is iconic, but Holyfield's still in the game, right?
Right.
And they go to him, and originally Holyfield's like, nah, like, nah. I doubt Tyson Holyfield's relationship is great, even all these years later. Initially, Holyfield goes, nah, I don't want any part of it. And then I'm sure somebody close to him said, hey, look, guy needs the money. You know
Hey,
what I mean?
you need the money.
You need the money. Can you help somebody out?
According to CelebrityNetWorth.com, Mike Tyson is worth $10 million. Evander Holyfield is worth $1 million. Let's put this into context. Each of them probably made hundreds of millions of
Oh yeah.
dollars in their lifetime.
Oh yeah.
Hundreds of millions. And instead of making stupid grills that you burn your foot on if you're trying to cook bacon in the
Right.
morning,
George Foreman, yeah.
yeah. Instead of doing that and having 9 sons named George and a daughter named George, which it's hey, I'm not a cranium doctor. I'm not a brain doctor. I'm just a doctor of emerictology. I think you got hit in the head a couple times there, George. Too
Well,
many times.
He made sure he could remember his kids' names. I ain't got no
Yeah.
problem with that.
Listen, I'm not saying you have CTE, but I'm saying we're gonna find out, aren't we? Neither of them, and this is one of those things that always makes me sad, is when people make money, whereas I think this is a thing that is shifting in our economy, where, if you're an influencer, if you're a celebrity on YouTube or whatever, you diversify your earnings and you figure out how, somebody's in your ear saying, hey, nobody cares about you wiggling your dick on TikTok forever. They're only going to care about it for 5 years. Take all the money you can get and you expand into not just clothing, but everything that you can expand into. And you become
and hoard it like cash. Live with your parents for that 5 years and hoard it in the bank. I don't care.
Kris Jenner will be studied by history as a woman who figured out how to take what would normally be an extremely shameful event in a family's history and turn it into billions and billions and billions of dollars of cash.
An empire.
This is America. If you get dick down on Kazaa, you can turn it into billions of dollars.
Well, so look, they got Holyfield involved, right? His people convinced him, and then they came out with the same product that was Mike Bites, called it Holy Ears, and you can find it right wherever this particular company puts it out.
Is this a gummy or is this a chocolate?
No, it's an edible, so it's a gummy. Is the way they have it here. The way they have it here.
See, if it was a chocolate ear, not to be racist, but if it was a chocolate ear, a chocolate Delta 9 ear, I might have been a little more interested.
Well, chocolate is a little harder to ship around the country, right?
Fair
Kind of stuff.
Needs to be refrigerated, harder to
sell. Yeah,
shelf-stable.
Gummies are definitely, and people, I think gummies, as far as the edibles are concerned, is your way forward for all of these kind of things.
Yeah, no, that's how everybody. Listen, I use strictly for going to sleep. Some of these types of products that are 50 state legal, and they're great. Okay, but if you told me as a goof, I could have an Evander Holyfield ear, I might. But
if I was a boxing fan, like if I had a buddy that was a boxing fan, like huge
Yes.
boxing fan that still gets all the pay-per-views, right? Maybe they're
Right.
a Paul Brothers fan, right? They're just huge into boxing, right? Whatever. And I got a jar of these for that boxing fan. Like that would make
Yeah.
sense to me. Like, hey, this is
Yeah.
really funny. This is cool.
It's the equivalent of a dick straw for a bachelorette party.
One
You know what I'm
hundred
saying?
percent. I'm not
Yeah.
going. Hey, I really like Mike Tyson's. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Holy ears product.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. But hey, the reason we put this in the show today was because, I actually thought it was a funny story.
well,
So,
but it's outside the box. This is where you and
yeah.
I go over and over. We've been doing this podcast a long time, and you and I talk over and over about these stories where people think outside the box, and sometimes it doesn't go well as expected. Sometimes it goes really well, and even if the product itself doesn't survive in the way that you thought, it could lead to another product that does.
Yeah. And if based on celebritynetworth.com, if that's accurate, and if I'm Evander Holyfield, I'm taking everything, dude. $1 million? Dude,
He's
you got
he's got to be worth way more than that. But now he's obviously spent a lot of money, and he's been talked about several times in boxing that the
yeah,
reason he's still boxing is because he needs to. He's got a bunch of kids.
yeah.
Apparently, he spent a lot of his money, as people
Tyson
do.
Tyson, on the other hand, does have a show called um he has a podcast called Hot Boxing. And in addition to that, Tyson does have a cannabis farm, if I'm correct. But the problem is, I think that his cannabis farm could be far more profitable. But
Could you listen to Mike Tyson talk on a podcast for an hour and a half? I don't think
here's the
I
thing.
could.
Here's the thing. Mike Tyson, after having lost a daughter, his brains got scrambled. He's been to jail a few times. He consumes a lot of his own product because the entire show is called Hot Boxing. And so there was one episode where I think he's sitting down with, oh frick, what's the guy's name? Big yoked guy. He was on he was on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and he was in White Chicks. But
Oh, Terry Crews.
Terry Crews, and he's sitting there, and him and Terry Crews are talking, and he's saying this insightful stuff. And then he looks at Terry Crews and says, I did a bunch of like, he has that gravelly voice. He's like, I did a bunch of shrooms before the show. So he's like, I'm flying through the sky. And there is something I appreciate. Now,
Yeah.
I think about getting older, and you and I have had this conversation privately, our thoughts about legacy and that kind of thing.
Right.
And my thought always goes, my grandfather was this kind of guy. He wanted to leave this earth with his family around him. And that's what happened. All of his children showed up, and when he passed away in the night with his kids there. I don't want to go like that. Danny's going out like Paul Walker, but I want to be like much older, like in my 90s.
You want
I
to go
want to,
out high speed, but in your
yeah,
90s.
in my 90s, but also I want to be absolutely lit, right? Like I just want to be like, my plan. I've never consumed any sort of illicit product in my lifetime. I just because I had asthma, and I was always afraid I was going to get lit and then get sick, have an asthma attack, and then my dickhead friends are going to like, how do we get him to a hospital?
Right.
And there's
Yeah. That's a valid fear.
yeah, but my plan is after the age of 80, we're doing it all.
Just doing it
I'm
all. Hey,
putting it all
you
in
know
there.
what? Maybe you and I meet up for that because that's pretty much my plan. When I
So
get old, we're gonna be
yeah,
here for a
so
good time, not a long time. There you go.
that's right. So after 80, I'm sitting my whole family down and I'm telling them. And I had a friend whose father did this because the doctor told him, if you don't make some lifestyle adjustments, you're on the way out. And he said, nice knowing you. I'm on the way out. There's actually a guy on YouTube who had a show called Ben Mala. The show is called Life for Sale. And he started the whole show because the doctor said, you're morbidly obese. You smoke you smoke a carton a day, something like that. This guy's driving around in a Rolls Royce smoking a carton of cigarettes and pulling up the McDonald's drive-through.
Yeah.
And he just said, yeah, I guess I have to set my sons up to run the business because I ain't changing. Like I appreciate somebody who values it, like the quality of life. So my goal is I want to be old and wrap a Rolls Royce, not one of the electric ones, one of the final V12s that they make around a tree. And then they pull my carcass out of the wreckage because, and they're
Sure.
going to send me off to the crematorium. and they're gonna do the blood test, and they're gonna say, "Well, kids, your dad was high on shrooms.
Right. Just all of it. All of
He
it.
blow a bit of angel dust,
That's
and we
right.
don't know where he found pipe meth. You know that.
Right. Here's
And
the
then
list of things he didn't have because it's shorter than the ones he did. Right?
correct, yeah,
Yeah. No, I get it. I
yeah.
get it.
So
I don't
let's
blame you
jump
there.
into this next one.
Next one you've
Um,
got here, another billionaire promises to give away his wealth.
yeah. So recently we did that story. I think when we came back after our extended break, we did this story about the founder of Patagonia said,
Yeah.
I'm going to give away all of my wealth because I'm a good person, and it's all going to go towards environmental causes. Me. And it turns out that it was just one
Was
huge
the
tax
voice
dodge.
necessary in
Yes.
the okay.
Yep. The high pitched voice is necessary when you run a company that makes billions of dollars in profits, and then you say, we're going to give you, we're going to help the environment. And Jeff Bezos has promised to do the same thing.
So you don't think he's part of the Bill Gates pack, the Melissa Gates pack that are like these rich people, the Warren Buffett that's
Yeah.
like we're the wealthiest people in the world and we're going to give away most of our wealth to charitable causes when they pass.
Yeah. So I'm just saying this now. Okay. I have a modest net worth. Okay. It's in the six figures, but not, we're not passing 100 real quick. Okay. My goal is to become even like extraordinarily wealthy. Right. And my goal is divvy up enough that my kids can start. You know, I don't have kids yet, but when I have kids, I want them
Mm-hmm.
to be able to start a life, start businesses, invest well. But daddy's going to use the rest of it and he's going to blow it. Okay. I
Now I
don't
tell my
care.
kids that all the time, you
Yeah.
know, because they ask about my kids are teenagers, but they
Yeah.
ask about, hey, you know what I mean? What happens if something happens to you? Are we okay? And like, no, you get
Yeah.
nothing.
You're
Like
going
I'm blowing it all.
to, and here's the problem. Over the years, I've become more and more of a minimalist, right? As
Right.
you can see, I have nothing behind me because that's the way I like it. So I don't care for things like yachts and hypercars like Bugatti. I'm a car guy, but I don't care about that. But I'm buying it just because I'm blowing it out on the way out. It makes you can't take it with you. The
You
whole
can't
point
take
is
it with you. There
the
is
whole
obviously a balance, but I mean, Jeff Bezos. Look, even if Jeff Bezos wanted to, he can't spend everything that he has.
124 billion dollars. So here's what I find interesting is when they said he had 124 billion, I started doing the math. I was like, that feels like less than I thought it was going to be.
Well, I so much of, and we've talked about this with Elon Musk and all this kind of
Right.
stuff, probably with the exception of Warren Buffett. These guys that say they're worth A, B, and C, like Jeff Bezos being, it's all, I don't want to say fake money, it's all tied up money, right? And so Jeff Bezos being worth 124, tomorrow it could be worth 250 billion. Like it
Right.
because of the
Just like
way,
yay. Just
yeah,
like yay.
just like Yay, just like
Yeah.
we're going to talk about with Sam Bankman-Fried, the FTX thing, right?
Yeah.
And all this stuff, it's all in company interest. It's all in
Well, no.
company assets and stuff like that.
So I would agree with you. Like I would call it a fake. This is a personal opinion. We live in a fake economy, right? Our economy is fake. So, and the reason I say our economy is fake is we have a debt-based economy that it does not encourage entrepreneurs or business people or the uber wealthy to actually have any wealth. They need to have hypothetical wealth that's structured as ownership stake in a corporation that owns IP to something else,
Mm-hmm.
so they can draw a loan against it because the loan's at 12% interest and the tax on it's 50%. So it's smarter to take the loan. So we live in this non-free market economy that doesn't encourage wealthy people to do one thing, actually be wealthy,
Correct.
right? So, and we're seeing this as a wave that's happening now Amazon, and this announcement, some people speculate, has to do with because his wealth is all tied up in Amazon stock. Amazon is laying off people. But our last episode was entitled "It's Layoff Season," because guess what? It's layoff season in all of the big tech companies, including Meta and Amazon and Twitter.
Hmm.
Everybody's laying off people in the thousands. We're not talking about 200 or 300 people. We're talking they're getting laid off in the thousands. We
Absolutely.
just we were talking for the last maybe year or so about how the biggest problem the economy had was workers. Well, guess what? All of the big tech companies are laying people off. Some of these people are going to take their $300,000 annual comp packages and they're going to figure out that they don't have this thing called actual skills,
Hmm.
right? And they're going to take those lack of actual skills and they're going to be telling you, hey, hey, good day. Would you like some chicken today? And they're going to be a caged chicken dishing out chicken fingers because,
Look,
yeah,
whether he's always been Jeff Bezos has always been a environmental, what do you call it when they give away lots of money, right?
philanthropist.
Philanthropist, right? Like
Mm,
he's always been behind the we need to do something about the environment, right?
right.
And that kind of
It's all a
stuff.
scam, but
And
yeah.
that's Danny's opinion, not the opinion
Yeah.
of the big man or the market fire pot. The point is that's where he says this is going, right? Now, again, these are all people that have said this is what's going to happen. None of these people have passed away yet, right?
Right.
Like none of these people have actually. Bill Gates has not died and passed on his net worth to charities, right?
I
Like,
have a Rumble video I would like you to watch. Bill Gates is a robot. I'm
is
just
he?
kidding. It's a joke. Yeah.
So Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, all these are
Yeah.
all. See, I would go less robot and more clone. See, like
See, I would go
clone
less
better,
clone.
more
I would go
realistic to
less
me.
clone. I would go less robot, and I would go full lizard person. But that's just me.
We're jumping right to lizard person, right? But
Yeah.
look, all these people have said a lot. I
Mm.
would be interested, and history will tell us whether these people kept these, what they say they're going to do and how they're going to do it. Also, history will tell us whether they are big, as you say, tax scams, as far
Right.
as I'm giving this all to charity, but my kids happen to be on the boards of all of these charities and draw $10 million a year, right?
Does Bezos have kids? I don't even know if he has kids.
I don't know. I'm just using it as a generalized
Right.
example of.
Well, let me also add this. There's that clip of when Bezos is getting interviewed by 2020, back when they mattered, and this was when he was a nerd. So like he was like, and he had the horseshoe, like he didn't have actual. You had the same haircut. It's before he started shaving his
Yes.
head and taking testosterone supplements,
Hmm.
and being generally jacked. He was doing this 2020 interview, and they're driving around Seattle, and the guy goes, "So blah 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 blah. It would seem like you're a billionaire." And Jeff goes, "Yeah. What's the question?" He goes, "Well, the question is why the Honda?" And if there's one thing I despise about modern business,
Hmm.
it's these people who are like, like there's pictures of Bill Gates wearing a Casio watch that's $30 at Walmart. Wear an expensive watch. You have billions of dollars.
Well, but you're a
Okay,
watch guy. Come on. Like,
that's fine. But I'm just saying, fine. Let's take that out of it. Why are you always wearing sweaters that you bought from Target over a shirt that you bought from Target? Why are you so frumpy? Okay, stop being frumpy. Okay, look awesome. What's the point of having billions of dollars if you look like a nerd and not Andrew Tate? Okay, the goal is to look like Andrew Tate. Dude, it is so stupid. It drives me nuts. You can't have that much money and then be like, I drive a Honda Accord. Don't do that. Have
see,
an
I'm
awesome
that
car.
person. I would drive the same and do the same truck that I would drive any other time. I wear the same clothes that I wear regardless of the net worth that I have, any of that stuff. Now, Jeff Bezos does have 4 kids. He has 3 boys and a little girl that he adopted from China, right? So he does have
Okay.
kids to worry about. But my point is,
Yeah.
even if he didn't, it's just a fact of history will tell us whether
Yeah.
these people that say they're giving away their wealth, I
Are
want to
actually doing
know
it.
who they're giving it away to ultimately, right? Where does it actually end up going? Not, hey, I say it's going to this, but where does it ultimately end up going? And does it in turn in some way benefit their legacy, their kids, whatever it may be, right? Like, again, does their kid sit on the board and draw a $10 million salary a year,
Right, right,
right?
right.
So they're using it as a tax evasion, but also setting their kids up for life. And if that's the case, can you tell me now so that I can do that for my children? And
Yeah,
like,
no, even if that, let's say that is the case, and I think the case in the Gates family is that each child gets 10 million, and I think there was some unhappiness about that. Like, it was like recently, I know 50 Cent's kid was like, "Man, how am I supposed to, I'm 20 whatever years old. How do you expect me to live on $5,000 or $6,000 allowance a month rather?" And dude, if my kid said that, not only would they stop getting their allowance, I would go to wherever they lived and I would evict them. Even if it was like,
well,
yeah, I
we
just,
also live in a world that you have Dr. Phil with kids on every week that, you know what
yeah,
I mean, say, I should never have to get a job because my parents have created an environment where I come accustomed to a certain right living
lifestyle.
style, lifestyle,
Yeah.
and it
And
would be unfair for them to expect me to do anything
right.
different.
And so let me just say this also while we're on this subject. This is not necessarily a business thing, but boomers need to take stock of the society that they've created and stop having so much pride in what they've done here and have a little more sanctimony. Like there should be a little more sanctimony. Like we're really sorry that we created a generation of really stupid people.
Yeah,
No,
asking boomers to take responsibility for
you
anything is
you
not a very
breezed
boomer
past.
thing.
Yeah, you breezed past something, and I think it's very important to bring up. He adopted a child from China. Was it
Yeah.
out of one of his factories? Eh? Oh, okay.
That's messed up, Danny. That is so messed up. That is
It is. It
beyond
is. You're totally
messed
right. It
up.
could have been out of a Nike factory, an Adidas
No.
factory. It didn't a Target factory. It didn't have to be an Amazon
I
factory.
don't know anything about any of that. That does not speak for me or Market Fire podcast. Danny is all on his own,
That's
accusing
right.
Jeff Bezos from adopting a kid out of one of his factories. I'm not
No,
saying he doesn't have factories, and I'm not saying they don't do those horrible things that they do. I am just saying that Danny has no evidence.
no, I'm not saying there's any evidence. I'm asking the question. He adopted a child from China. Did that child come out
Oh,
of one of his factories?
Danny's here to ask the hard questions. He
I'm
really
here to ask the
is.
hard pressing questions, such as was it like one of those situations where like we know about the factories in China, about the iPhone factory, right? Every progressive person who's like the wealth tax should be 100% after $10 million or whatever. They always tweet that from their iPhone that clearly a child in China made, where they have nets under the building. So if people they get caught and they can just go back to work.
That is
So,
awful. Can you imagine living in a
oh,
society that has to put
yeah,
nets under buildings because people, you know what I mean?
yeah, like listen, people want to say this is a result of capitalism, and I'm like, no, no, no. This is a result of a country who went, how do we get wealthy? And they said, what if we just don't have any, like, we just let companies come here and run roughshod over, you know,
Mm.
basic. I'm a free market capitalist guy, but I still believe in this thing called human rights,
Yeah,
right?
no,
And
corporate overlords give no about rights, human
yeah, but
rights.
I'm just saying, like, if we can't, free markets are about, we can't deny humanity as part of that. And so that conflation of like, no, no, that's a problem for me. So, but at the same time, I actually do know, and this has nothing to do with the show, but I'll just end this segment with this. I actually do know a former missionary to Cambodia, and there
Mm.
was some kids in Berkeley, California, complaining that it was either Berkeley or Portland, but probably Berkeley, who were
Probably
complaining
Berkeley.
about a Nike factory in Cambodia, and they were protesting that this Nike factory had less than ideal working conditions, which was probably true. The women at this factory, it was majority staffed by women. They would sleep in tents near or around the factory, and that's because they lived out in some middle of nowhere place, and that's really rough. And he told me, he's like, I was opposed to the factory while I was there. I thought it was horrible. These people are working in a really hot factory. There's all this other stuff going on. So Nike just closes the factory and moves it to some other third world country, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the workers now turned to selling themselves because they had no other way of eating.
Right.
So
There's always more than one perspective, right?
yeah, so
So
he was this guy, this missionary guy was like, "Oh, this is horrible." Then he's like, "Then I saw the alternative, and I was like, bring back the factory. Like they need the factory. This is a better." That's just like, yeah, it is. It's unfortunate. There are
yeah.
children working in there, and that kind of. And I was making a joke. I'm sure he did what every billionaire does and just bought his kid out of an orphanage.
Hey, you and I don't know right now whether that's
We
true or
don't have
not.
any
Okay,
clue.
so the fact that it
This
is
is
or it isn't,
speculation.
I will leave that up to whoever. But speaking of billionaires, or in this case, millionaires, you and I talked on last week's live episode about FTX and
Yeah,
Sam Bankman
Bankman Fried.
Friedman, whatever.
Yeah, Sam Bankman Fried, SBF. You call him a millionaire. I think what we're gonna have to start calling him is hundredaire and felon is my
No,
guess.
he's a hobo at this point. He is worth $0. So, which is an update to last week's story. When you and I talked last week, it was more of a okay, his company's going to file for bankruptcy. He's going to still probably have a couple of $100 million in the bank and live
Right.
out his life with his 10 roommates, which are, we've now figured out, aren't his roommates. They're in this kind of lovely 10 cultish
Don't want to know.
relationshipy
Yep.
whatever it is. So they were all in relationships with each other and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They all ran the company together like some big hippie commune, right?
Yeah.
Commune, I should say. So, and again, I have no problem with that if it was a successful company, but it sounds like it's a good old fashioned Ponzi scheme. They were robbing people's accounts to pay for other accounts, to hide their insolvency that you and I were talking about last week. And of
Right.
course, when it all started coming crashing down, the house of cards started to fall apart. And so he's gone from losing his company to losing everything. And by the way, being detained by the Bahamas Police Department because he tried to flee the country and get out of it. And now, the reason this really came up today is because this morning, as we're recording this, or not even recording, we're doing this live on November 15th, it came out this morning that this guy filed for bankruptcy. His millionaire status is gone. He was arrested for trying to flee. And you know what he spent the last couple of days doing, Danny?
What's that?
Calling his investors and asking for more money.
So Danny's going to go off on the conspiracy tangent for just a second.
Okay.
Just a second. Give me just a second. There is a thought brewing that perhaps
Is this only in your head or anybody else's? Like just yours
no,
or okay?
I hold on. I texted you a Twitter thread that was very, very credible.
I just want to make sure it's not just you and the 10 voices in your head. But go ahead.
No.
Go ahead. Put it out.
So there is a theory. Of course, we don't know if any of this is factual. I'm not saying it is. It is 100% speculation that what has taken place is that saying Bankman Fried, this part is not a conspiracy. He was the largest donor to Democratic causes and candidates in this most recent election that happened last week. That's fine. You're allowed to do that. I have
to
no
a grand
problem with
total of just under $40 million. Go ahead.
Right, but no, that number is not huge. And I mean, probably 10, 15, 20 billion dollars gets spent in the midterms. Probably 100 billion in a presidential election year. So that's not a huge number, but that puts him number 2 behind a guy's name I'm too afraid to even say.
Yeah, we're not saying it, but go ahead.
Yeah.
We all know who it is.
Yes, correct. And so the conspiracy, the part where there's speculation is, it appears as though a country that is currently being invaded by another country that was receiving tons of aid from the United States invested that aid into FTX, which in turn gave money to Democrat causes and candidates. So it would appear now some might use the phrase money laundering cycle. I would never do that, where the money was leaving the US taxpayer, going to this Eastern European nation, and then returning into turning
through
into
investment
through
into
investment
crypto.
into various cryptos, but also the platform of FTX. And then the capital was then extracted out of the company and then used to. Now, here's the
You're
thing.
using conspiracy theory that he didn't make this donation, that Eastern European country through the money laundering of FTX was making those donations. That's the conspiracy theory you're saying.
Yeah.
I consume as much news as Danny does. Now we definitely
No,
consume
you
different
consume.
types of
No, you,
news.
you consume news. I don't consume any news. I don't even care.
So we definitely get information from different parts of the interwebs, I guess I should say.
Yeah. You get
So
it from reputable sources. I get it from people who aren't accurate yet. Now
my
they're going to
favorite
be.
my favorite statement, folks, this week, Danny and I text daily for something, whether it's news stories, whether it's whatever. My favorite statement from Danny this past week, when I asked him, or I told him, I think I made a statement that what he was saying just wasn't true. And Danny's statement to me was, we live in a post-truth world now.
Post-fact. Yeah,
Post-fact world. You know what I mean? A post-fact world now. And I wish I could say that Danny was wrong. We do live in a post-fact world now. Not only according to Danny, but according to a whole lot of information out there. But this to me, the guy's world is crumbling around him and still has the cojones, the big steel balls to call his current investors that aren't going to see a dime and go, hey, can you give me some more money? By the way, I have not read a single thing that says what he thinks he's going to use this money for. Is he trying to raise it for his legal defense? Is he trying to raise it to save the company? Which he can't at this point. I think here's the deal. And speaking of conspiracy theories, I don't know that this is a conspiracy theory rather than the truth. If he doesn't find a way to pull this company out of bankruptcy, he has to give the bankruptcy court every person's name that ever put money into FTX. Every client, every investor, everybody that opened an account into FTX will be in the findings of the bankruptcy court. Every dollar that they were given, you see what I'm saying? Like, that's a lot of information.
So what happened with America's most prolific Ponzi scheme, which was Madoff,
right?
Which, by the way, investors of Bernie Madoff got 75 cents on the dollar of their investment. Now, we always hear about how horrifying his Ponzi scheme was. He did better than some fund managers did at that point in time.
Like, fund managers for a short period of time, yes.
So I'm just saying, when the entire market crashed during the GFC, the Great Financial Crisis, for him to have liquidated his fund and returned 75 cents on the dollar, sure, people thought hypothetically they had so much money in their account or whatever, and it turned out it was just on paper. But the point is, 75 cents on the dollar in a downturn, it's pretty good.
Well, but as you and I've talked several times, my issue with cryptocurrency specifically, and this and other types of stocks. We've talked about meme stocks and stuff like that, that you get left with bag holders, right? And the fact is people that move their money from whatever cryptocurrency they had over to the FTX exchange are going to be left with nothing. 2 weeks ago, you might have had $1 million in your in FTX. And today you have zero, unless you pulled it out. Like, it's
and there's also speculation that SBF hacked Post after everyone figured out that this thing's insolvent. He was the one who hacked the platform. There's reasons to believe that. I don't know if that's true.
That is another conspiracy theory. They are now currently investigating, because it was a grand total of what, almost $400 million was hacked and taken out and moved out of it. Crypto's apparently so safe, and blockchain's so safe. I keep reading about hacks every week on
Yeah.
money getting moved around and money. Now, whether that's coming from the inside, from the people that built this stuff, or whether
Yeah.
it's coming from the outside, I don't know. There's a lot of different
Yeah.
theories, but this is what happens when you don't look. Wells Fargo is a bank which is backed by the United States government. Wells Fargo
Yeah.
can't become insolvent because it is backed by the United States government.
Well,
Wells Fargo
it's
can't just
well,
choose
see,
not to give me my
t-
money, but
yeah.
FTX is going to.
So here's the difference. Technically, they're not backed by the U.S. government. They're insured by FDIC.
Correct.
Yeah. So what the insurance of FDIC promises, and I use the term FDIC, it's FDIC, but I always say FDIC
Yes,
because
I
that's
got you.
funnier. They're just promising that up to 200 something. I think it's 250 per account. So that's what they insure, right?
Right.
So and listen, they're not. You're not wrong, and I'm not I'm not an apologist for these platforms. I'm an evangelist for the hypothetical future that blockchain and crypto provides. I'm not really an evangelist for a particular coin. I'm
Right.
just looking at this thing as the critical when it reaches a critical mass, which if you're looking at certain countries, Venezuela, Syria, I believe, a handful of other countries like that have experienced mass inflation, all this other stuff, and there was a run on the banks in some Middle Eastern country where people are now robbing. They were robbing the bank to just get their money out. They're not trying to
Right.
get anybody else's
Yeah.
money out,
Yeah.
and they're using crypto as and this is a economic theory more than it is a practicality, which is value is subjective, right? And so the dollar in my pocket buys something because we all agree that dollars
Are
buy
worth
things.
X, right?
Yeah.
And then you get into inflation and yada yada
Yeah,
yada.
and so and listen, I'm just if you keep your crypto on an exchange, caveat emptor, buyer
Well,
beware.
yeah, and that's the buy. And again, I believe in the buyer beware, right? We're all adults and
Yeah.
stuff like that. I just believe in limits of buyer beware,
And
especially
here's
when
what
it
I'm
comes to
saying.
things that people don't understand.
Yeah, and here's the problem. I agree with you hypothetically, but how do we get people to a place of understanding? How do we get them to learn? And the only way you really learn that the stove is hot is your dad is cooking something with a cast iron skillet, and you reach up and touch the cast iron skillet, and then he takes your hand and he subs it on there and say, "See, I told you the stove is hot. Don't touch it." So
Well,
you learn that lesson.
and I would love not that I love this scenario, but I would love to say that it's only ignorant people that lose their money, right? And that
It's not.
they're all being taken advantage of. I sent you a story, and I don't know whether you kept the link or not. I think I sent it to you yesterday of the people that are involved with FTX,
It's
some of the big
wild.
time
Yeah.
people, the Miami Heat, the
Yeah.
basketball club, the Miami Heat. Obviously, Matt Damon did commercials for Coinbase, right, last year or
Yep.
whatever, and has lost through this whole FTX thing, lost a crap ton of money. Matt Damon, by the way, if you didn't know, is actually Hollywood's biggest loser in the amount of money that he could have made. You know what the biggest chunk of that money that he could have made that he didn't make comes from? He
What's
was
that?
actually James Cameron wanted him to be in the first
Avatar.
Avatar movie. Wanted
Yep.
him to be, and not only did he want him to be in the first Avatar movie, he was willing to give him 10% of the franchise to be in the first Avatar movie. But he was finishing up the Bourne Supremacy, right?
Mm.
Franchise, so he didn't have time to go to that next. The timing didn't work out, so
Mm.
he missed out on 10% of the Avatar franchise.
And if you want to talk about stupid people getting ripped off and stupid people getting ripped off, and I say they deserve it, anybody who likes Avatar, anybody, this is a basic, like, you think the political system works and you like Avatar. If somebody tells me they like Avatar, I delete them from my brain immediately. Okay. If someone says Avatar was a good movie, I'm starting to I call up child services. I'm like, you got to take away this guy's kids. He thinks Avatar's good.
So wrong, Danny. It's so
Yeah.
wrong. You
Right.
against everybody else in the world. But anyway,
Yeah.
so we'll continue to do updates on this because
gonna
I'm
keep following
curious
this
to
story.
see where this goes. because I think this guy's done. I
No,
mean, and not to look, I'm not the best looking guy in the world, but
yeah.
this guy is creepy looking. Like,
So he and I had the exact same haircut at SBF as SBF did. From the time I was born till the time I was 6 or 7, and then my father started taking me to Great Clips. But until then, I had the big poofy what is the J Fro as it is sometimes referred to. I'm allowed to use that term because
well,
half.
he's going to be popular in prison, I'm sure.
Well,
Um,
here's the other thing. I'm just as parting on this story. He's not going anywhere. He laundered 40 million hypothetically. He laundered hypothetically $40 million hypothetically for the U.S. government and the current
mhm.
administration. His mother, by the way, who used to run money raising organizations for this political party. So I'm saying SBF saw the writing on the wall and said, "Let's make sure we don't go." But by the way, there's a little
Uh-huh.
like, the show Silicon Valley kind of has this Simpsons effect of kind of predicting the future. One of the gals that he apparently was in a relation, I don't know what their relationship was. All of these people appear to me as though they might be on the spectrum. Some of them have been diagnosed that way. That's not a judgment. I'm just saying that seems to be the case. And there was a character that it almost looks like she's cosplaying from Silicon Valley, and I think the character's name is Gwart or something like that. And the name is obviously meant to be like this, but
Ambiguous thing, yeah.
yeah, and this gal that was running it with him that apparently he was dating or not dating, I don't know. I don't really care about that part of it. That's for HBO to make a documentary about that part of their cult.
And they will.
But yeah, they will, and I can't wait, and I will watch all of it, and it will be on our Patreon, and we will discuss it on our Patreon.
Hmm.
But it was when I saw her, like she was wearing the big, like round, thick rimmed glasses, but then like she had like Coke bottles in them. I was like, it's 2022, friend. You can get. Cause I have a pretty thick prescription, but
Right.
nonetheless, the thing I'm driving at here is that show ended up kind of predicting like this kind of character. But it's one of those things that like
Hmm.
us being in Austin and we're seeing this flood of Silicon Valley tech people. And we're like, this is not the weird we were trying to keep Austin weird through.
Right. Well,
This
look,
is a
I think
different
he
weird.
may be not big enough. See, this is where I think he falls in that. See, there's big people, big stars, well known people that they're just never going to jail, right? They're
Yeah.
just whatever. And then there's this lot of little middle section that people like to make examples of, right?
Mm,
You know what I mean? When Plaxico Burress went to jail for a year because he had a gun
right.
in New York City, right? Like, he wasn't a superstar yet, and he wasn't, you know what I mean? So he went to
Isn't
jail
that the
for a
guy who
year.
shot himself in the pee?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes. Okay, because he had
Didn't he
it
suffer
in.
enough?
He was wearing
Didn't he?
sweats and had a gun in his waistband in New York City, and it wasn't even licensed in New York City, right? So New York City made an example out of him.
But didn't he already suffer enough?
I'm I'm just saying that
Yeah,
they
yeah,
made an
yeah.
example out of him.
Right,
I think this guy may be in that middle category where he's
right.
not a big enough name that your average American doesn't know who this guy is. Your
No,
average
nor do they
American has
care.
no idea what cryptocurrency is. They see the Super Bowl commercials and they're like, "What the hell is that? I don't get it.
Yeah,
I don't understand it." So I think he might be in that gray area where he ends up spending some time in jail because look, America wants its grubby hands on the crypto world. They want regulation on it. They want to be involved in it. Because look, in the at the end of the day, a lot of people are going to make a lot of money in it, just like every other exchange we have. The New York Stock
yeah,
Exchange, right? The Nasdaq, all of it.
right.
They want it to be a future
And
thing, and they want it to
yeah,
be a part of it and make their money off of it like everything else.
and this is where the Winklevoss twins, kind of made their bones when they're billionaires now, and they kind of made their bones in seeing the forthcoming market, and they created Gemini, which is the most
Mm-hmm.
government compliant exchange, which for people in the crypto space, don't I personally there's finance bros who are into crypto, and then
Mm-hmm.
there's crypto bros who are libertarian and then got into crypto because some of it aligned with their
Right.
socio-political values, which is where I probably fall in terms of being a crypto fan. um So I'm less interested in government legitimizing it. There's a couple of I forget the guy's name. He does the podcast called Orange Pill, and he's like, "Oh no, we need government regulation. That's going to legitimize it." And my thought process is, no, I'd rather a bunch of people lose their money, because the minute we legitimize it with government is the moment it has no value. The
And
way
that
it,
it loses what you believe is the value in an alternative
yeah,
worldwide.
it's
Yeah, no,
pirate currency. It's pirate currency, and that's what's good about it.
right.
So that's just my opinion, though.
You and a whole bunch of, uh, people that do bad things all around the world and use it to fund those things. So, yes.
Yeah. If you
Okay.
pick up the average American $20 bill and you broke it down, with about $100 worth of $20 bills, you got enough blow to actually go on a trip.
I'm just saying, you and all the old school blood diamond marketers are all in the same category. All right.
Sure.
Anyway, if those of you that don't know, before crypto, diamonds were used as essentially cryptocurrency, that they all just
Yeah.
agreed that this amount of diamonds was worth X number of dollars, and then that way you
Right.
could turn it into diamonds, go to another
Right.
country, and then exchange it back, and then
Right.
so on and so forth.
Because you can
Anyway,
carry $10 million worth of diamonds in the breast pocket of your suit
right.
jacket.
Because it
And you don't
wasn't
have
$10
to.
million in diamonds, it was an agreed upon $10 million.
Yeah.
And that's how the black
Hypothetical.
market worked. The you know what I mean? The black
Yeah.
crypto, that's what crypto was before crypto existed.
Right. What it should have
Right.
been. It's pirate money, which is what I liked about it. And then all of these nerds with their JFros and on the spectrum and their MacBooks and their weird condos full of 10 people that they're in weird relationships with, they turned it into this dumb thing. And I hate that about it.
Well, the psychology behind it is interesting to me because would did they get into this trouble because they were smart enough to create it, but not smart enough to keep it? So
Hmm.
was it because they were smart enough to create it, and then the money, the different things that happened to them led them down to this not smart enough to keep it? Or were they just doomed from the get-go because they weren't smart enough to keep it in the first place?
Well, I think a lot of the SBF made his money arbitraging Bitcoin out of Japanese exchanges,
Mm-hmm.
and I forget which way it worked. So he was smart enough to make money, but he went down to the Bahamas to create this exchange, and yeah, I think that was, if he had stayed a solo arbitrage trader, I don't think we ever hear his name, and I don't think he's ever in this bind.
Yeah.
So
But that's always an interesting thing to me. Did the
yeah,
money slash fame, whichever it is, right, in
right,
any particular situation, was it the money slash fame that caused what is an issue, or were
right,
they going to go down that path regardless of the money and fame? Right, the Britney Spears, for example,
yeah.
has she always been crazy, or has the money and fame caused her to become
Britney
crazy?
Spears is a different, and it's different because she was a teenager and she didn't really matriculate through to adulthood like a normal person would. And so
Sure.
I think that's what kind of, so whereas SBF didn't really have money until very recently, and Vitalik Buterin didn't have money, like he was making very little money until more than recently. So the reason I think I don't think it's the money. I think it's their own. Here's what I don't think it's the money or the fame. It's the hubris, right? It's the lack of risk
Mm.
adverseness. They're not risk adverse, but that's how they got there, right?
Well, because Elon Musk is doing the same thing in Twitter right now, right? Is he like this now because of the money that he's created, or has he always been this person?
I just watched a clip of him saying, in 2008, I was down to my last $30 million. Doesn't sound like a lot, but I mean, it does sound like a lot, but it doesn't at the same time.
Hmm.
And he said, I had two choices. Either I dump the whole thing into one company, being SpaceX or Tesla, or I split it in half and the other one dies. And then he goes, I couldn't make a decision. I couldn't choose. So I just split it up and I put half into, but when you really look at the technical values of both of his companies,
Hmm.
I mean, he bet the farm. So that, and people are trash talking Elon on Twitter right now because they're getting a small glimpse into what it looks like to turn a business around. And they're like, he's doing this stupidly. And I'm always asking the question, have you ever even opened a bake stand,
Right,
a
right.
lemonade stand? If you've never run a business and he's going in there and he's running roughshod over their teams and he's doing this, that, and the other thing, and people are angry about it, and it's hurting Tesla stock, and he sold $4 billion worth of Tesla stock. He liquidated a little bit, and everyone's like, he's going down. He's not. He actually is. It's not perfect. He's having. They're like he's starving his employees because he won't pay $13 million a year to run kitchens in their headquarter offices in New York and San Francisco, even though nobody's either throwing all the food out. So,
You don't need a kitchen at a
yeah,
at
I
a,
know.
at a at, but
But no,
again, you're
people on
right.
Twitter are
We
people
don't
on
know.
Twitter.
History tells us, right? People can
So
complain all day long when change is difficult, change is hard.
yeah,
Now,
so like even
I'm not sticking up for Elon either. I don't know
no,
where
neither am
this is
I.
going to end up. This could end up all poorly. Twitter goes into bankruptcy, and even if that happens, it's not the downfall of Elon Musk. By the way,
No,
he's still a billionaire.
right. But I'm just saying, people who are hype, like they live in a world of hypotheticals,
Hmm.
have never. And here's the thing: Twitter is now a private company that has to do this weird thing that they hate in Silicon Valley and they hate in New York and they hate in parts of basically from downtown, like south of Breaker. Okay,
Right, South
they
Austin.
yeah, well, central to South Austin. They hate this thing called profits.
Right,
So Elon's trying to do this thing where he makes the company profitable,
and quickly.
and
He's not
yeah,
doing it slowly.
right. And there's a saying in Silicon Valley, one that I agree with, which is move fast and break things. And he's doing that, and he's firing people. And guess what? It's a company that you can email a bunch of people 280 characters. It does not need a 10,000 staff of like, we have to maintain, when we have to get free lunch and somebody called me the wrong name. My name is Razor now. So like, it doesn't like you deserve to get fired. I'm just saying that people who
Your
I'm not,
representations of certain people are just so
mm,
mean. Go ahead.
yeah, I'm just saying that in the context of SBF or any of these other people, I haven't run $1 billion companies, right? I don't intend to either,
Hmm.
right? My strategy for getting wealthy is strictly being an investor who's not. Anyways, I have no interest in running $1 billion corporations with hundreds of thousands of people working for me. I have no interest in that. But if you haven't, like, if that's not your lived experience,
Yeah, always
okay,
consider the source when you're getting advice. Like,
and they're
just
like,
do.
he's gonna run Twitter into the ground. I'm seeing people saying, I'm gonna miss this site. You people spent the last however many years saying, if you don't like it, build your own platform. And then this guy comes along, buys their platform, starts pissing on it. And I'm here for that part. I love watching it, that part. And they're going, he's running it into the ground. No, he's trying to make it profitable.
Well,
So
you're
the
a
thing,
part-time cashier at Walmart. Like, and again, nothing against that working hard.
no,
I'm just saying, what is your experience owning a
no,
multi-billion-dollar
I
technology
don't.
company?
I don't care about him. I don't care about the part-time cashier at Walmart. I care about the adjunct sociology professor from, Arapahoe Community College in Colorado tweeting, if everybody is verified, because he was verified and now
Right.
everyone else is verified. If everybody's a blue check, nobody's a blue check. Hey, dickbag, nobody cared what you thought before anyway. Okay.
You and your 15 followers can go. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I agree with you there. I think you're going to see a lot of changes, and I think he ultimately figures out what he wants it to be ultimately. And I think he's trying to do the bull in the, like you said, go fast, break things, figure it
Yeah.
out, and he'll
That
settle. He'll settle.
Yeah, that threat of Twitter going bankrupt, I love it because let me tell you what's going to happen. He's going to be able to level the value to something more reasonable. All he's going to do is take this thing into a bankruptcy. He's going to discharge it. And listen, UBS and a bunch of these other massive banks that gave him money
Yeah.
deserve to lose their billions of dollars.
Well, but it allows you to renegotiate. People forget that there's
Yeah.
different types of bankruptcy.
Correct.
One of them, you give up zero assets. It just allows you to renegotiate
What is that,
really
13?
bad terms, right?
I think it's
And
13.
I don't remember which one, but the point
Yeah.
is it allows you to renegotiate. Maybe he goes in and he renegotiate. It allows him to renegotiate every contract that Twitter has with everybody they have contracts with, right?
Right.
Not just
And
your investors, but who you're buying products from, or you know what I mean?
right.
Whatever it is.
So yeah, and I'll relate it to this, and I have nothing left to say in this segment, but people always criticize Robert Kiyosaki, and they say
Mhm.
he's filed bankruptcy multiple times. Yeah, that's what you do. You set up entities that you're not signing personal guarantees for, and when your entity has $150 in the bank and you owe someone else $2 million, you just file bankruptcy. It's strategic. It's smart. It's the system.
I'm not saying any of that because I don't agree with that, but
I,
it
I
is
don't
a
like it.
tool that is available.
No, I don't agree with it. I don't like it. I disagree with it. I think it's bad. It's skeevy business. But that's the system. And here's the thing. The people in charge of the system don't want to change the system because that's how their donors, their husbands, their wives, that's how they make money. So
Well,
there's no change coming in the system to make it free and fair, which is what I would prefer, because the people who are in charge of the system created a system for their benefit, not for your benefit.
that is partially true, and I
Yeah.
do agree with you. So, I think we've been at this for about an hour and a half right now, which is about our norm, Danny. So we can
Yeah.
probably move those other stories around, or we can do them
Yep.
on Patreon, which is of course, the the shipping container issue and all that
Yeah.
stuff. I actually
We'll
find
get to
that
it on
really
Friday.
interesting because everybody, look, that's one of those cause and effect things, right?
Right.
Us as a consumer are going to get charged if there's too much. We're going to get charged if there's not enough because there's
Right.
all these little things that happen in the middle.
We'll
getting-
jump into that on Friday. How's that sound?
That'll work. All right,
All right.
folks, we'll see you next time around. We appreciate you, and
Oh wait,
it's all
we
Danny's
forgot-
fault.
That's true. Yeah, that's fine.
All right, folks, we'll see you.